the last game we have to talk about, the game that everybody in the country is probably going to be watching, 9-1 Michigan State taking on 9-1 Ohio State. This game is going to kick off at noon on ABC. Ohio State, surprisingly, is a 19-point favorite. Now, I'm really surprised that Ohio State is favored to win by so much, because they were favored to win by Purdue by multiple possessions, and they pretty much annihilated them at halftime. They almost doggone near score 50 points coming around halftime. Now, this is a really big game. This is pretty much a college football playoffs elimination game. Michigan State is off to a 9-1 start, which is their best start to a season since 2015, where they won the Big Ten and they also made an appearance in the college football playoffs under former head coach Mark D'Antoni. Mel Tucker came out in his press conference recently and said that he does not want to get into a shootout with Ohio State. As a matter of fact, the term shootout makes Mel Tucker want to vomit. Now, Michigan State had a bounce back win against Maryland last week, 40-21. Ohio State defeated Purdue. And when you look at Ohio State, man, this team looks like it has finally hit its stride. And earlier on in the season, it had some difficulties when it came to defense. You know, they kind of struggled to stop the run. It kind of looks like this Ohio State team has turned a corner, which I can understand why they are a 19-point favorite in the eyes of Vegas. Look at what they did to Purdue. There were a lot of people who felt like Purdue was going to be able to pull off the upset, and that didn't really happen. Now, a lot of people, well, a lot of Ohio State fans are probably going to go into this game and saying that Michigan State isn't really a good team. I disagree with that. This is the same Michigan State team that defeated Michigan and came back on Michigan, believe it or not, and won that game, which is a little bit more surprising in my opinion, because Michigan has a way better defense than Ohio State. Michigan actually has one of the best defenses in college football, so it's really surprising to see Michigan State pull off the upset the way they did. I thought that game was going to be low scoring. I thought it was going to be physical. I thought there was going to be a lot of defense, not a lot of offense being played in that game. But the fact that Michigan State was able to win that game the way they did was really surprising. Now, I picked Michigan State to get the upset in that game, but I was just surprised the way they did it. And then they did it behind the run game of running back Kenneth Walker. Kenneth Walker has been on a tear so far this season. He's pretty much everybody's front runner for the Heisman. He has had 17 touchdowns so far. He's averaging 6.5 yards per attempt. He has 1,473 rushing yards. And you also got to look at the fact that you have quarterback Peyton Thorne, who has been one of the more efficient quarterbacks in the Big Ten this year. This Michigan State offense has a lot of firepower. You also have a good amount of wide receivers who can also generate big plays. And this is a big play offense. This is an offense that is generated, and it kind of operates off having big splash plays. You know, 15 yards here, 3 plays later, you have 20 yards. Now, let me tell you guys something that has me kind of blowed. So, I've been seeing a lot of people taking shots at Michigan State's secondary, saying that Michigan State doesn't really have a great secondary. And I agree with that. I'm not denying that, but it's kind of a little bit confusing to me how everybody's going to take shots and say that Michigan State doesn't have a great secondary when Ohio State secondary isn't all that great neither. But I think the difference is that Ohio State is better at getting pressure on the quarterback compared to how good Michigan State is when it comes to getting consistent pressure on the quarterback. So when you have a good defensive line that's able to get constant pressure on the quarterback, it helps out your secondary, because then your corners and your DBs don't have to be in coverage for all that long. So that's something that kind of blows me when it comes to this game. Everybody is getting on the Michigan State secondary, how it's not that great, but I don't really think that Ohio State secondary is all that great neither. And I definitely feel like Michigan State, led by quarterback Peyton Thorne, is going to be able to take advantage of that Ohio State secondary. Now, Michigan State secondary is going to get absolutely torched in the passing game by Ohio State with quarterback C.J. Stroud, with wide receivers Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, Jackson Smith, and C.J. Stroud, man, has played really well this season. Earlier in the season, there were a lot of people who wanted to bench C.J. Stroud. It's a good thing a lot of you guys aren't coaches because a lot of people in this world don't have patience. So it's a good thing for all you guys who are calling for C.J. Stroud to be benched weren't coaches, because, you know, you got to give young players time to get into the flow. You got to remember, C.J. Stroud wasn't starting last year. He was sitting behind Justin Fields, so it's going to take him a couple of weeks to get into the rhythm of things. Well, now he's been kind of hot. He also, with Kenneth Walker, has been in the Heisman conversation this year. I definitely feel like he's been the best QB in the Big Ten this season. Now, when you look at Ohio State, okay, how are you going to game plan to stop Kenneth Walker? Now, Kenneth Walker is the heart and soul of this Michigan State team. Now, they can win if Kenneth Walker doesn't have a great day. Believe it or not, that's also another common misconception that I've seen thrown out there. A lot of people are saying if Kenneth Walker gets shut down by Ohio State, they can't win this game. I wholeheartedly disagree with that statement. Like, do you not know how many playmakers that Michigan State has at wide receiver? They have a really good quarterback. So if Kenneth Walker doesn't have a good day, I feel like when you look at Ohio State secondary, Peyton Thorne definitely could end up having a big day through the air for Michigan State. Now, Michigan State has a pretty good run defense. They're ranked 15th in college football against the run. Ohio State also has a really good run defense. They have the 13th best run defense in the nation. Now, Kenneth Walker kind of is like a fallback guy. Like, when the offense can't get nothing going, you can always rely on Kenneth Walker to be there. He's like the ultimate safety lock, pretty much. You know, you always know that you're going to have some offense as long as you have Kenneth Walker on the field. But what happens if Kenneth Walker doesn't really have a great day? Well, then you have to rely on Peyton Thorne. You definitely have a talented group of wide receivers, but I definitely feel like the biggest factor in this game, personally, is going to be which team is going to be able to get consistent pressure on the quarterback, because you have two explosive offenses that are pretty much predicated on the big play. And then on top of that, I want to see how these two teams fare inside of the red zone. I feel like the red zone could be really critical in this game because we could have some red zone miscues that could result in turnovers. We could have a team that opts to go for it on fourth down and they end up getting stopped. So I definitely feel like the red zone could be a really big factor in this game. Now, for Ohio State, you have a pretty good group of running backs. You don't really have nobody who is on the level of Kenneth Walker, but you have a good rotation of running backs, and that's something that Ohio State doesn't really get a lot of credit for, is the ability to run the football when they have to or if they need to. But the pass game has just been so doggone dominant that they haven't really needed to run the football all that much. But I definitely feel like if you're Ohio State in this game, this is probably going to be another matchup where you don't really have to have that much success on the ground unless you want to try to play keep away, try to keep Michigan State's offense off the field and keep their defense on the field. Because with the way Michigan State's offense is set up, like, even if Michigan State gets down at any point in this game, if they're down by 2 or 3 possessions, they can still come back and win a game, just because this is an offense that isn't predicated on efficiency. This is an offense that is predicated on big plays. And I was telling people this in the Michigan game, and a lot of people disagree with me. Well, you saw the way Michigan State came back. And I don't think that Ohio State is going to blow out Michigan State. As a matter of fact, I'm going to take Michigan State to pull off the upset. And the reason why I'm going to take Michigan State to pull off the upset is that I feel like a lot of people are picking Ohio State because they're saying Michigan State doesn't have a great secondary, and I do agree with that. But I also feel like Ohio State is a really incredibly flawed football team, and I know a lot of people are going to say, JT, this is the same football team that lost to Oregon early on in the season, and I understand that. But at the same time, I mean, what other team have you really played who has been a big threat offensively? Not really counting Purdue, but I just really feel like this is a game that Michigan State is going to be able to win, because I feel like Kenneth Walker is going to be able to have a solid day on the ground, but I also really feel like Peyton Thorne is going to be the star player in this game. And this game could go either way. Like, I don't see, even if Ohio State does win this game, I don't feel like this game is going to be a blowout. But I really like how explosive this Michigan State offense is, and I don't really feel like enough people are really harping on, you know, Ohio State's defense. Like their defensive line is really incredible, but their secondary is a little bit more flawed than what a lot of people are giving out to be. A lot of people just keep talking about Michigan State secondary not being that great. I don't think Ohio State secondary is that great, and I really feel like that's going to be a main factor in why Michigan State is going to win this game. I'm going to take Michigan State to win. 42-38 is going to be my final score prediction. I feel like this game is going to be decided by the last 2 minutes, whichever offense has the ball in their hands last. I have a weird intuition that I feel like that could be Michigan State. So that's why I'm going to take Michigan State to pull off the upset. So you guys let me know who you guys have winning this game. If you're watching this on YouTube, down in the comment section down below. Make sure that you guys go ahead and check out the JT Sports Podcast. Every video that is uploaded on the channel is available in audio format on every single podcasting platform: Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcast, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast from. The JT Sports Podcast is available. Also, make sure that you follow me on my social media platforms. Instagram and Twitter are both JT Sports _. You can follow me on those, link down in the description. And I appreciate you guys for listening to another episode of the JT Sports Podcast.